And we're live.
Wow,
Hello,
Leo.
everyone.
2022. Welcome to the Happy New Year.
The New Year. Let's before we designate it as happy, let's just say the New Year. So welcome to the New Year, and this is the Jew function. These are the two Jews behind the Jew function, and we're very happy to be here in this final episode in the series that officially started in January of 2020.
The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
Okay, it's not the end of the podcast, it's just the end of the series. We started this podcast on a march on a bridge, if you remember. This was a march against anti-Semitism, and we set out...
Wow, before the pandemic.
Yeah, before people had to wear masks and all that. There were like 20.
What was that march in relation to? In response to?
It was the No Fear, No Hate. It was in response to a surge of anti-Semitic attacks. There were like some knifing events, some shooting. The shooting in
Brooklyn Bridge or something.
Well, the bridge was where the march took place, but this was there was a thing in New Jersey. There was a thing in like Yonkers or White Plains or whatever, and basically there was suddenly a resurgence of this anti-Semitism, right? Which it's not a secret anymore. And there's this big march, and we said, let's try to figure out, why is this still a thing? Why do people hate the Jews? And is there a root reason for it? And if so, is there a solution, right? Not the old patchwork type of remedies that we've been applying, but something that would really kind of stem it from its root. And I think, Seth, we've, and just to say, and we've been reading from a book, a mystery book, which we're going to reveal today. So stay with us if you listen thus far. I'm sure you'll be interested to know what it is. And we have a few other surprises. So first of all, Seth, how are you?
It's very curious how I am, because on the one hand, things seem okay. And I always thought to myself that, if I was alive in the late 30s, if I was, I would see this coming and I would do something. And how did they, why were they so foolish that they didn't act sooner? And on the one hand, today, I have work. Thank God, my family's healthy. Things are relatively calm outside, but at the same time, on January 5th, for example, New York there's some bill that some 416 something, I don't know what it's called exactly, to indefinitely detain people because they could be a health risk. And in Australia, people were put into certain camps because of COVID, and anti-Semitism is on the rise all around the world. And there's like these little hints in the air again that something just is off balance. And it's weird, because at the same time, you can go to the grocery store, you can go to the movie theater, you can go, Omicron is on the rise, but it's a weird cognitively dissonant time, because there's like two realities. It's like the history is like alive. The present is strangely, like, half the time you feel like the whole world is collapsing, and half the time it's like you walk outside, it's like, oh, hey neighbor, hey, how's it going? You want to go to the coffee shop? And then you look towards the future, and the future is completely unknown. So actually it feels like I'm balancing on the tip of a needle. That's how it really feels.
You sound like a good Jew.
Okay.
Remember, we had the episode that ended with the scene from A Serious Man. It's always like hanging in the balance.
Yeah.
But the question is, Seth, are we tipping the balance, and I'm not 100% sure. We've just put out a new little video on the TJF channel, and it was like a 2021 year in review, and it's not looking great for Jews. Whatever we're doing is not entirely working. Hate crimes, 60% of hate crimes are against Jews, although we're just a tiny minority. 60% of those hate crimes are against Jews. A quarter of Jewish kids who play video games online get harassed for their Jewishness. A quarter. Not 0.2%. Iran, of course, we don't need to talk about Iran. If you go to college, your kid is about to go to college, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you went to college with two friends, one of you is going to get, is going to experience anti-Semitism firsthand. I'm not saying it to scare you. I know you're already shaken, but it's not great. And I hope that people who have been listening know that we think we're kind of onto something. And today's episode, we're going to try to bring it home. We are on a timeline. We're right at the outset of World War II, the darkest hour for Jews. And I think it's very symbolic that we're reading it today, and where the world is, and what Jews are facing today. And I'm a little sad and scared to say that we're not that far off. And I'm not even talking about, Seth, about those who are against us. I'm not talking about the anti-Semites, because we can't control them. We try, right? We can complain to them, sue them, nag them to death, but it's about us, as we've been reading. And so even on the eve of World War II, Jews were still not united. Jews were still not working towards that ideal after which they're called Jews.
No,
That's
but that's what I was trying to say. Looking back is very hard. You say, like, if I was there, I would have done this. But now it's like a reboot of that time. It's like a reset of that time. The cycle's coming around again. And we could see how far emotionally we are from that. If you live in a neighborhood where someone's getting stabbed, or, you're getting swastika on your synagogue door, so that's close to home. But as far as Jews go across the board, it doesn't emotionally stir us. And you can relate to what happened in the 30s, in the early 40s. You can relate that it's, in retrospect, why didn't they move? Why didn't they act? Why didn't they do something? And now you can feel why not, because it's so, and maybe this has something to do with why, through all of the generations, through every exile, through every destruction that our people went through, why can't we move? It's as if we don't have the emotions, because facts are facts, but really we move based on feelings. Yeah. And we just don't feel it. We don't feel that when I feel hungry, I must eat. When I feel thirsty, I at least I see, even if I can't find a drink, I search. But we don't have, it's as if we're completely numb, or not even numb. It's as if the feeling is, it's like we're desensitized. We don't have a way to feel this. And I hope that somehow, through presenting it in an entertaining way, or presenting it in such a clear way, that people will get it. But
entertaining is key here. Yeah, we're all about entertainment. You know what? So speaking of entertainment, let's dive into the book, because this is what this episode is about. It's called, by the way, the name of the episode is The Untold Holocaust. Right. So let's keep that in the back of our heads as we try to navigate it. in high spirits. We don't want to bum anyone out. We actually want to. This could be a great adventure, as we once said at some point, right? So let's try to kind of keep both this dread of the untold Holocaust over our heads, and at the same time the excitement of the adventure of what might be if we change course a little bit. So let's start by reading from the book. Let's give us a little intro into where we are.
When World War II broke out, the barred doors of the free world left European Jewry with virtually no options but to stay put and await its fate. Although the Nazis made it perfectly clear from the moment they came to power that they would not tolerate the presence of Jews among them, the Jews refused to believe that they had fallen from the zenith to the nadir and shunned the option of the transfer agreement. Additionally, the Zionists had their own misgivings about how many Jewish capitalists, which was how they defined German Jews, that they wanted in Palestine, so as not to undercut the dominance of socialism in the nascent Jewish settlement. Polish Jewry, too, shunned the clearing agreement and did not even challenge the immigration quota set by the British mandate. Moreover, here, too, the Zionist leadership did not want anti-Zionist Orthodox Jews, the kind of Jewry from which most Zionists had fled, to come to Palestine in overwhelming numbers. When the door to Palestine began to close and the Nazi pressure intensified in the late 1930s, the Jews tried other options. But the nations denied their requests, with the active support of prominent, primarily American Jewish organizations. The Evian Conference, the St. Louis Ocean Liner, and the Rubli-Walstadt Agreement merely reflected the inherent reluctance of the nations to help the stranded Jews. Now they were at the mercy of the Nazis.
Let that sink in for a second. This is then, and it's surprisingly not that different than now. If you think about young Jews in America, Jews in Israel, older Jews in America, it's almost like 3, maybe 4 distinct camps of Jews. I'm not even counting the subgroups of the subgroups. It's interesting. But let's not get too much into it. I really want to invite our first guest, actually our only guest for today, our primary guest, our guest of honor, the person behind the book. He will help us reveal the book, and we'll hear directly from the person who wrote the book, edited the book, orchestrated the research behind the book, everything. So please give a warm welcome to our friend Chaim Ratz. Chaim, show yourself. There he is.
Hello.
Okay, this is where we're going to have some applause sound effects. So, how are you?
I'm great. Sounds like I'm much better than you guys. I've been listening to you, and wow, there's a lot we can do. I think it's really, we're not at that point yet, and there's a lot more we can do. We haven't even started, actually. So, I think it's good to know where we are. I think it's good to know where we're headed. I think it's good to know what history teaches us. And it's also good to know what we can do to stop it. And, let's get proactive.
Right. So we'll talk about all those things. We will certainly not leave it at that, because we don't want to depress anyone. This is about a solution. I think we should start with the book, right? So Chaim, just before I introduce the book, the name of the book, and everything, what was your role exactly in the making of this book?
I've been working with Dr. Lightman for many, many years. I think 20 years or something like that. With everything that has to do with English texts, translating, editing, writing. Eventually, I became his ghostwriter and an editor. So in this book, I did kind of both. I get the idea and the message from Dr. Lightman, and I get to work, and then I bring it to him, and then he gives suggestions and directions and so forth. And then I continue, and it's a back and forth process until you have a complete work.
So you're basically the ghost.
I'm the ghost.
Conducting.
I'm also the writer.
Exactly. All right. So the book, Seth, can you do the drum? Do you have a drum roll machine there in the back there, Seth?
I
The music
don't,
stuff.
unfortunately.
No. Hey. All right. So we'll put in the drum roll, in post. So the book that we've been reading from this past 22 episodes and a couple of years is
Jewish Choice: Unity or Anti-Semitism? Historical Facts on Anti-Semitism as a Reflection of Jewish Social Discord. Micah Lightman, PhD, with the famous picture of the coin with the Star of David on one side and the swastika on the other side. That was
coin and swastika. That's what set this off, I think. For
that
me.
was kind of that's a very dramatic. The first time you see that.
Yeah. So,
Chaim, how'd you find that?
Wait, hold on. Let's just plug this thing. You can get this book on Amazon, a few other places probably, right? Anywhere they sell good quality books, you can get this book on. We'll have a link show up here on the screen in a second. And there's also more things we'll say about it. But Seth, you're asking, Chaim?
Yeah, there's so many things that blew me away going through this book, that filled in so many blank spaces in the history that I was told. I said this multiple times on the podcast, but I grew up with this feeling that the Jew was some Woody Allen character, some downtrodden, weak guy, and for whatever reason, people just kept hating on him. That was kind of the story. We were just minding our own business, and then people just hated on us. That was how I grew up, kind of understanding our history. This was such a ridiculously huge, eye-opening process, and also made a lot more sense. And is real, and all of a sudden all of the characters came to life and history came to life, and just so cinematic and so much drama. And there was many huge discoveries, and one of the most dramatic, was coming across this story of Nazis visiting Israel and trying to move the Jews out of Europe and into Israel, and this coin that was minted with a Star of David on one side and a swastika on the other. I'm sure you got a lot of stories in the process of making this, but can you tell us how you came across this and what that was all about?
Well, I first saw it. There was a story on Israeli TV about this German guy who befriended a Jewish family, and he came over here, and he traveled to Israel, Palestine at the time, and it shocked a lot of people. They showed it in the film. It shocked a lot of people. So I went in to check on it to see what this was about. I was already working on the book, and the thing is, you realize many things when just like you said, when you read the book, you realize many things. So as I was working on it, I came across so many astounding things. Now, one of them, for example, was how the Nazi regime related to Zionism and how it related to Jews. It made a very distinct difference in how it related to Jews versus Zionists. Jews were those who wanted to stay in Germany. Zionists were Jews who wanted to immigrate to Israel and build a Jewish state in Palestine. The Nazis were all for it, not only because they wanted to get rid of the Jews, which they did for sure, but also because they saw it as the vocation of the Jewish people. And they wrote it very explicitly on the front pages of their papers. There's one article that's quoted in the book where they divide the article into two parts. The first part talks about Zionists and how the Germans, the Nazi government, will help them in any way they can to immigrate to Israel and to start living there and establish a Jewish state. And they said it would be good for the Jews and good for the world. That's how they saw it. But at the same time, in the same article, they warned the Jews who want to stay in Germany that they're not going to let them stay, that they're going to do everything and anything so that there will be no Jews in Germany. And they warned them in advance, even if you served in the German army during World War I, or your parents did, it's not going to help you. You don't belong here. Go to Palestine and start a Jewish state there, and then we'll support you 100%. And they were true to their word. They paid for they paid for their, not only in a bad sense, they paid for Zionist organizations. They supported them financially. They taught, they gave free courses to Jews on professions that were required in Palestine to, land cultivation and industry and whatnot. They had the transfer agreement,
right,
where you were allowed to transfer funds from Germany to Palestine.
Yeah.
In those days, you were not allowed to take out any money from Germany outside to any other country because of German economic problems, except for Palestine. If you were a Jew and you wanted to immigrate there, in the infamous Nuremberg Law, the ones we always quote about anti-Semitism, they specify in item 4 that no one is allowed to wave any flag outside the Nazi flag. This is the only flag that's permitted within Nazi area, within Germany and Austria, except for the Jewish flag, the Star of David, the flag of Israel. Yeah. Jews were permitted to wave that flag and wear their own uniform of the Zionist movements. They taught Hebrew. I'll tell you more than that. Mildenstein, the guy who traveled Israel and eventually wrote all the stories, and they had the coin pointed afterwards, where they produced this coin. He had this deputy, a fellow Austrian, which he thought, he tried to help him into the ranks of the SS and the Nazi government. So he took in this friend and helped him in. And he taught him all about the Jews. And he told him about the importance of the Jews. And this guy became fascinated with Jews. He learned Hebrew. And he traveled to Israel as well. And he, along with Mildenstein, attended Zionist Congress, the 19th and 20th Zionist Congress, as official delegations of the Nazi government supporting Zionism. You know what this guy's name is?
Eichmann.
Adolf Eichmann.
Sorry, I read the book. So
yeah, exactly.
They sound like lovely people.
They flipped once they saw that Jews were not willing to immigrate to Israel. They flipped.
If you came today and said, if you came today, and I know that there's some kind of Harry Potter world, and you say, you can come to this place and this is where you belong. Imagine you came to America and you said to Latinos, or you said to Indian people, you know what, listen, I'm willing to move you, Indian people in America, right from India. Just pick any random group. listen, you are special and you have a special role in humanity, and I'm willing to deport you all, and you can take all your stuff with you, and I'll make it easy for you. And if not, it's not going to be good for you. Now, we would say that's nuts. So when we look back now, it's like, oh, well, God, the Nazis were so generous. I mean, why didn't the Jews just listen? But if you were then, that's again, you have a lot of cognitive dissonance, and emotionally it doesn't sit well. Now, in retrospect, say, hey, Nazis sound like great people. They really wanted to help the Jews out. They wanted to let them move their money. They let them have their flag. They were the only ones who could keep their clothing, their uniforms. In retrospect, it kind of looks like that. At the time, like if it were to happen today, it's nuts. You're coming into my country where I have a business, where I have a family, where I'm living in my society with my community, and you're telling me get out, and you'll help me get out. And if not, it's going to be very bad. In retrospect, there's one kind of like, wow, we could have diverted this whole disaster.
It's always like that. Yeah. Every disaster that the Jews have ever had has always been the same story. It sounds nuts, in present tense, but in past tense, we always go, how come we didn't see it? How come we didn't see it coming? It never makes sense. But I'll tell you one thing. To make this book, which talks about not just the Holocaust is just the latest incident, the worst, of course, but it's also the latest. It's been the same pattern since the very, very beginning, since the first days of the Jews in Egypt, even before they went out of Egypt. The same story happens. Jews, it's not only, like you said, that people tell them, you guys are special, you have some special task in the world. Jews themselves feel that they have a special task in the world, okay? And the whole world feel that they are, well, different anyway, at least different. So when the pressure grows on them, it never makes sense. They never, get the hint while they still can. And they always get beat up every single time. They've been, since the ruin of the Second Temple 2,000 years ago, they've been expelled and banned and banished more than 800 times from that many places.
So there's something I'd like to challenge to that, because it makes sense and you can see it historically. But there's something that you said that really strikes a nerve for half the Jews, or whatever the percentage. You said that they feel that they have some special role. And
what other nation has this term tikkun olam?
I don't know. I don't know what all the nations have.
None.
But
none.
But there is a feeling also among Jews, and we saw this with the Jews that were in America. I think it's in the same chapter here about this, when they wanted to send the Jews after the St. Louis was turned away. The Jews that were in America, well, the Jewish leaders like Rabbi Weiss, they didn't want Jews to come to America. They didn't want those kind of Jews, meaning religious Jews, settling here. And in fact, they wanted, it seems...
They weren't even religious. They were German Jews. They were Reformed Jews, just like Weiss himself. They were the same kind, Reformed Judaism started in Germany. They were the same type of Judaism as Rabbi Weiss himself, except they were Jews. They were Jewish refugees from Europe. And he was afraid that if Jewish refugees came to America from Europe, it would increase anti-Semitism in the U.S., and that's why he didn't want them.
Okay, so which is another point, but the question is, I'm not sure that every Jew feels that there's something special about him. It seems there's another strain within the Jews that they just want to be accepted and be like everyone else.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to be like everyone else? Come on. It's good to stand out, but then at the end of the day, you want to know that you have a place to
But Chaim, I'm trying to challenge what you said, because you said that the Jews have this feeling that they're somehow chosen, or they have some kind of role, and they feel it inside. But there's another strain within the Jewish people that always happens, and you talked about historically, and we read it here, that they mingle with the Roman government, or they mingle with the Spanish government.
The same was true for the German Jews. They wanted to be Germans. They didn't consider themselves Jewish. They were Germans of the Moses faith, something like that. Their capital was Berlin. Their hopes was Berlin was to them the New Jerusalem, just as in Spain, Catalonia, or whatever it was then, was for them the New Jerusalem.
And today in America?
Well, you asked the Jews in America.
New York or Los Angeles, as we heard from one of our interviewees. He talks about the Golden Medina, which is...
No, but definitely American Jews seized Washington, D.C. as their capital. Absolutely.
The irony is, by the way, that when the Nazis started to round up the Jews, every Jewish person they gathered, they all, regardless of their name, they call all the male Jews Israel. All the female Sarah, all the male Israel. So it was interesting. It's like a final reminder, like, they could have called them just Chaim or something. No, Israel. It's the irony is not lost.
Maybe it's not pleasant, but either we remember it.
No, this podcast
or
is all
we'll
about
be
being
reminded
pleasant,
of it. That's the pleasant part, huh?
Yeah, this podcast is all about being pleasant. That's why people tune in. They want to hear pleasant things.
I can't wait for the morbid part to begin.
Yeah. So I think that let's do a little just jump into the book for a second, just to give people context, because the last episode we kind of stayed out of the book, and the one before it was the rise of Hitler and the Socialist and National Socialist Party, and now we are coming to the Holocaust. As we read, this is the eve of the Holocaust. So one of the first clues as to the relationship between the American Jews and the Jews in Germany was this Avian conference, right, which happened in 1938. And then 5 years later, there was the Bermuda one. So both hugely successful conferences, which accomplished nothing except for a great, probably, vacation for everyone involved. But I think that was just a sign of the kind of relationship. So I know just so everybody here understands, we just don't have time to read all the book is full of little vignettes of all the stuff that was happening while the war machine was rolling. There was this other kind of silent Holocaust, as we said, the untold Holocaust happening in the background, all these missed opportunities that we saw, that like, there was a way to just pivot out of here. We missed that, and then we missed that, and we missed that. And it's kind of heart-wrenching to read about it, because it's like you're watching this protagonist in the movie, and he keeps making all the wrong choices, and he just goes, it's like you're watching a horror movie. It's like, no, don't go in that room. No, don't go in that. Don't go in the shower.
What do you do? What? I'm in America today. Do you say the same thing? Do you say the same thing now? It's like, oh, didn't he see? Can he see?
Wait. So hold on, Seth. Hold that question, because this is going to keep kind of coming back to us. So I asked you and Chaim and myself. We all picked just one story, one vignette from those things, and there's many more in the book, of course. So Chaim, you picked the one, something that speaks about the Avian conference. You want to tell us? You want to read a little excerpt and tell us what was interesting to you about that?
Yeah, I think the excerpt, kind of speaks for itself. Basically, the idea was to show that it's not as if Germany. The Nazis did what they did. There's no getting around it. The problem is that we think of the world as we could have escaped there. We could have escaped there. Only the Nazis hated Jews. And if we realized how much support the world gave to the Nazis when it comes to anti-Semitism, not when it comes to Nazism and the war and all that, but when it comes to hating Jews, if we realized how much the world really didn't want us either, then maybe we would think more about what we as Jews can do for ourselves, how we can help ourselves, how it's really in our hands, how we have to stick to each other and find the key to our strength there, instead of looking for it by pleasing others and appeasing others and whatnot, and everything we do, we've always done, basically. Right? So I'm just going to read the excerpt. The United States convened a conference in Evian, France, in the summer of 1938. Its purpose was to determine how to help German and Austrian Jews escape from the Nazi countries and save their lives. 32 countries attended it. By the way, most of them were European, and there were, of course, the United States, which convened it, and there was Australia and other countries, but the Western world, basically. So 32 countries attended it, but apart from the Dominican Republic, not one of them was willing to let any Jew come to them. Rabbi Jonna B. Wise, not the Wise we talked about before, that was Stephen Wise. This guy is a different Wise, but he's also a wise guy. So he was a national campaign chairman of the Joint Distribution Committee. He attended the Evian conference as an unofficial observer. Following the conference, all he had offered was accolades to the head of the U.S. delegation, Myron Taylor. According to the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, which is an international news agency, it's still active today, Wise, quote, attributed the conference's success, as he put it, to the personal efforts of Myron C. Taylor. He praised Mr. Taylor for doing a marvelous job in keeping the conference to its task and from the failure freely predicted for it by cynical observers, end quote. As a result of the leadership of the United States, he continues, Wise, which Rabbi Wise described as manna from the heavens to the democracies of Europe and South America, and the personal efforts of Mr. Taylor, the conference marked the beginning of a new era in the rise of democracy from its humiliating deference to world tyrants. Rabbi Wise said, it served principally to sound a note of humanity and protest against a problem arising out of the actions of a totalitarian government. It was remarkable that 30 nations came together and practically agreed that the problem was one of humanity and not the concern of a few groups of people. And this accolade came at the backdrop of the country's decision not to allow any Jews to immigrate to them. The Australian delegation said, we have no problem of anti-Semitism in our country, and we have no desire to import one.
Terrifying. And this thing, by the way, it continues. Like you constantly see, Jewish people in positions of power, politically, economically, otherwise, trying to make decisions that would that they think would benefit their would not benefit, rather would reflect on their loyalty to where they are, thinking that's what I need to do. I'm an American. My loyalty is to America, and that's so. Even if it means turning against or not aiding or not helping my fellow Jews, okay, so be it. This is a small price to pay for some form of greater good. Problem is, history doesn't show any greater good. The host country always ends up turning against the Jews. that's the thing that's hard to fathom, that this could happen. But here we are. I'm sorry to say this before you jump in. Here we are in America today, and we see a very similar kind of sentiment, and you see it happening in increasingly more and more places around the country, to the point that, and Chaim, you mentioned the New York Times, and we'll get to it in a second. The New York Times today, I mean, just recently was asked about it, the way it's covering different issues and topics related to the Jews, but and even Trump made certain comments about, right, the Salzburgers and how they cover Jewish topics. And lo and behold, you go back, and it's in the book, page 175, shows that between 1939 and 1945, the New York Times published more than 23,000 front-page stories. Of those, 11,500 were about World War II, and only 26 were about the Holocaust. I mean, that's, right? That's the same paper that Barry Weiss had to quit not long ago because.
And at that time, it was owned by Jews.
Yeah. That's the Salzburger. He admitted the policy of downplaying the Holocaust was intentional. And he says that while he is Jewish and identifies as a Jew, he doesn't think Judaism is anything more than a religious category, and therefore he doesn't relate to those people because he does not view them as part of the same people or race.
Yeah, he was also an anti-Zionist.
Well, that's just a little added bonus, but right, and it's the same. Funny enough, Chaim, just before we went on, you told us the story about Barry Weiss. Right? How,
yeah. I was. She has she's a famous former New York Times reporter and op-ed writer, and she has her own blog now, which I subscribe to because I really like her writing, and so I had this article that I was saving for later. It was called Jew versus Jew. And today I started reading it, and it just reads familiar. And I look into it, and the first link that she refers to, I click it, and as you said, lo and behold, it sends me to an op-ed by Dr. Lightman about
which you wrote.
Which I wrote, yes. So, and from there on, all the information in her story is basically taken from there, or it's based on there.
And by the way, it's funny. It's sort of coming full circle because that day on the bridge, when I was crossing the bridge and broadcasting, at the end of the bridge on the Brooklyn side, there was a little stage and people giving speeches, and Barry Weiss was giving a speech. It was right after her book came out, and she was still working for the New York Times, and I was trying to get to her, but it was impossible. So Barry, if you're listening, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have a talk with you. Chaim here would love to talk to you. Dr. Lightman would love to talk to you. We'd all have to talk to you because we think you're a great writer, and that you have the ability maybe to, after experiencing what you've experienced, to bring some sense to our people. So,
well, she obviously understands the message, so I was very encouraged.
Yeah, no, I think some people get it, but that's always a question. Like, how many people need to get it before things change? That's the question. There are as many Jews living in America as there are in Israel. I don't know.
I want to ask another question because I want to find where this separates. So there's a civil war in Syria, for example, and Syrian refugees are pouring into Europe, right? So why is that different than this or any other refugee crisis that happened in the world? What is unique about this one? Because couldn't you have, so we're a bunch of Jews sitting around talking about our history. There could be a Syrian podcast where they're talking about theirs. There can be, I don't know, There could be 5 different podcasts happening right now. There can be something about the African slave trade, and they could be talking about what happened in their history. What about this are we focused on? Because the story might be a story that many different nations and people go through. What can we learn from this story that is of particular interest to us? That it's not just a story that all of humanity is going through. Many
From
groups.
which story in particular?
Well, there are refugees in a lot of places, and there was probably political dealings in a lot of places. So what about this Jewish story holds interest to us?
Well, I would like to take this question and pose it to the world. How come, for example, out of 14 resolutions that the United Nations General Assembly made last year in condemnation of a particular country, out of those 14, 10 were against Israel, 4 were against the rest of the countries in the world. And it's like that every single year, not just in the UN General Assembly, but also in the Human Rights Committee, UNESCO, you name it, the United States Security Council, if it's not vetoed. Okay? It's always like that, everywhere. Look at the European Union. Look at how much money they pour into organizations that do nothing but slander Israel. Israel is the only country in the world that is a permanent agenda item on UN committees. The only country, even if they have nothing to say, they have to talk about Israel. Do you know that? At every meeting, they have to make up a topic, even if they have nothing to say. Nothing happened. They still have to talk about Israel. It's a permanent agenda item. No other country has that status. I don't remember who said it. I think Elie Wiesel said it, I think, that Israel is the Jew among the nations. It's that relation. When there wasn't the state of Israel, there were Jews. You couldn't hate the state of Israel, so you hated Jews. You couldn't destroy the state of Israel, so you destroyed the Jews. That's the Holocaust, basically. That's the only difference. Now you can destroy a sovereign country, then there was no country, so they destroyed the Jews. And it's not like only the Germans did it. Yes, we know the Polish, the Ukrainians, everyone were involved.
I think, Seth, the question about the refugees is especially poignant because how many refugees came into Europe last couple of years?
Several million.
Millions, right? There's a story in the book about 900 people, right, on board the St. Louis. We mentioned that before that, and that's a story that I chose, and it's fascinating because, granted, you could say, okay, it's been 80 years, so the world learned its lesson, to some extent. Maybe you could say that. I'm just, charging the world to a scale of merit, but even so, in the big scheme of things, there were 3 million Jews in Poland, 600,000 in Germany, a few other millions scattered around Europe, and 900 people after the Kristallnacht in the end of 1938. And in May of 1939, this group of Jews boarded the St. Louis ocean liner, and they came to America, applied for visas, waited by offshore near Cuba, waiting for the visas. Then suddenly are told to turn around, and they start to sail back. And then they sail by Miami, and they try to reach president and his wife and get them to like a stay of execution, right? And nope, nothing. The same. I think the same people who were involved in the avian sham, as you call it, they're involved in that as well. And I forget the name of it, but let's see. After many days of negotiations, the American Jewish Joint Distribution, they managed to send them back to Europe, but they will be dispersed among nations. So the UK got 288 of them, but the rest went to countries that were later overrun by Hitler. So very few survived, if at all. And the amazing thing is that countries were really afraid to take them in, to set a precedent that, we'll be taking in Jews, right? Nobody wanted that problem on their hands, so to speak. And I'm just reading this one piece here from the book. Probably the strongest indication of the misery and hopelessness of the passengers aboard the St. Louis. Think about it. You're leaving Germany. You're like, oh my God, home free. And then you turn around and you go back. Was the virtually complete silence of American Jewry in regard to the crisis, and especially the silence of Rabbi Stephen Samuel Wise, the other Wise. Professor Raphael Madoff, founder of the David S. Wyman Institute for Holocaust Studies, writes that Wise was the longtime leader of the ZOA, the Zionist Organization of America, president of the leading U.S. Jewish Defense Agency, the American Jewish Congress, and the most prominent Reform rabbi of his day. But as far as helping fellow members of his tribe, Wise often chose silence and inaction so as not to compromise what he believed was a warm relationship with President Roosevelt. Again, you read these stories and it just that it's like a punch in the gut every time. And here we are again. A lot of Jewish people feel very comfortable in America, very safe, right? We built this long relationship over the years, over the decades. Surely we'll be fine, right? When it can't come to that again, right? The Americans won't turn their backs on us, right? Just like the Russians didn't. No, I'm sorry, the Russians did turn their backs on us.
Or maybe the Spanish? No, the Spanish too.
No, Spanish also, yeah. Not good. British, no. French?
Maybe the British. Back in the 13th century. No, they kicked us out as well.
Kicked us out as well.
Yeah. Maybe the French? No. Remember Dreyfus? No.
French is not good.
No. So who?
And it's strange because I think, Seth, there's a feeling that, you don't want to come off as a traitor to your host country. And I get it. And nobody says, turn against where, the host country you're in. All we're saying is start being more welcoming and embracing towards other Jews, because maybe there's something there. Maybe something about the way we relate to one another has to do with that, has to do with our mission, our destiny, our origin. Jew from the word unity, as everybody heard it say a million times on this podcast.
I have to interject and add another aspect here, because we're talking about American Jewry here, and we're kind of putting everything on it. And it is kind of unfair, I think, because you also have the state of Israel. It's a sovereign Jewish state. And I think the situation within Israel is no better at all, if not worse, than it is in America. I think both communities, first on their own and then maybe later together, but at least on their own, have to really, really, really work on their unity, on their internal unity. There are divisions and rifts and chasms and whatnot within American Jewry, for sure, but there are also terrible, terrible chasms within Israel, among all the different factions and ethnicities and cultures and whatnot within Israel. And I think in the end, both communities are doing a lot of harm to the Jewish people with the current situation that we have among ourselves. Yeah, not because of how we relate to other people, other nations, other countries, or anything like that, but because of how we relate to one another.
Yeah, I remember in 2012, I was giving a talk at the Israeli embassy, just on related issues, and a famous basketball player Moti Awesti, remember him? He was like a legend.
I'm old enough to remember him.
Exactly. If you're over 50, you're like, it's a name dropping. You'll recognize. Anyway, he came up to me and he was like, "Don't say Israelis and Jews. Say American Jews and Israeli Jews." He really wanted the two camps to come a little closer. He could feel back then, and in fact, a lot of people feel it. There's always been people who felt it, who kind of got it, and yet somehow they did not prevail, and it was ridiculous. But somehow we always end up screwing ourselves.
So the book lays out millennia, centuries of the same cycle kind of repeating. Okay. And we understand, okay, so just teach everyone the book, teach everyone the cycle. But we also get that it's not enough first of all, that would be a huge challenge for people to just understand the history. But suppose everyone
just to read a book is a big challenge, Seth. Just to read a book is a big challenge.
So that's why we made a podcast. So suppose someone listens to the podcast or reads a book and they get it. But still, when I'm hungry, I'll get off my chair and go to the kitchen. If I don't feel something, and not only feel something, I need to know what to do after that. And so we're in the same state again, and there's got to be something redeeming in both of these camps. This Rabbi Samuel Weiss, who was this rabbi who was in America, who was very integrated in American society, very much didn't want to disrupt anything, very much wanted the Jews to be able to get along with everyone. That's a quality in there that also shouldn't be erased. So, to put the death of all of the European Jews on him, it's like, I don't want to have salt for dinner, but salt makes dinner taste better, right? So Rabbi Weiss by himself, maybe just call him salt. It's disgusting. I don't want to eat that for dinner. But that quality that a Jew has, that he wants to be able to be integrated with everyone, that he wants to not cause problems with everyone. There's something to it. So Jews should just get along. But you have these two very, very different kind of worldviews that are that feel as far as East is from West. So when we say, Jews just need to unite, and then we could have avoided the Purim story. Then we could have avoided the Inquisition. Then we could have avoided, Torquemada was a Jew, right? Then we could have avoided the destruction of the Second Temple. Every story that you lay out in here, behind the curtains, there's some Jew against another Jew that's always causing the problem. But to just say Jews need to unite, how does East unite with West? Because you have two qualities that you really, really need, but they don't feel any connection towards each other. They don't feel in them that there is, these Jews say, no, we need to be able to get along with everyone. We need to not disrupt things. We need to, what did Weiss say? That he said, cruel as I may seem, as I have said to you before, talking about Roosevelt's election, that his election is more important than anything else here, right? So he sees that, in order for us to stay in this country and be able to do well here, we need this president to win. That's the most important. My question that I'm bringing up, and I'm trying to relate it to today, is you have American Jews who want to have companies, who want to be integrated with everyone, want to develop tech, who want to marry whoever, who want to just be normal people. And what first of all, okay, that's one group. Then who's the other group, first of all? And what is the unity between them? and you say it's Democrats and Republicans, one that says, pro-Israel and one is against Israel. What are the two groups today? And what is this bridge that they can't, what is this gap that they can't bridge that, if we look at history, looks like could be the cause for the next big problem?
You're asking a political question. I'm not a politician.
No, not asking a political question.
No, I think it's a question between, it's the age-old question of keep things as they are versus disrupt things, right?
Okay, I'll tell you what I think. First of all, we're not pinning anything on Stephen Wise. He didn't cause the Holocaust. He didn't cause the murder of the Jews. His attitude, the reason why he's brought up in the book so many times, is because he was a leader of American Jewry, and he, in many ways, not only epitomized but also acted on keeping European Jewry away from America. We saw this, right? If you read the book, you'll see all the stories about Alaska, the Virgin Islands, and all those other places. And by the way, in St. Louis, he also told FDR that his advice was not to let them in.
He said that it was too hot for the Jews to settle in the Virgin Islands, and it was too cold for them to settle in Alaska.
That makes perfect
Nice
sense.
time,
Perfect
maybe.
sense.
Right.
The Jews are very sensitive to the weather, by the way. It's a known fact.
But that's not the issue. The issue is a division among Jews. That's what's causing the hatred toward Jews in the beginning, to begin with. Now, you're asking, okay, so what should they do? There is no answer to that, because at every point in time and in every community and in every kind of division, the act is different. Tell a parent, what do you do with your child? He'll go, what kind of question is that? When? What child? What age? What circumstances? Nothing. But if the parent loves the child, right? You love your children. So you know what to do with them when you need to do something. Why? Because you love them, so you care about them. So you bust your brains and you figure out what to do because you feel for them.
So who's the child in this metaphor, Chaim?
The child is the unity between us. If we understood that unity is the key to our salvation, not only ours, Jews care about the world. Remember Tikkun Olam. It's the key to the salvation of the world. It's even written in the New Testament. For salvation comes from the Jews. It's written in the Quran. Okay? That it's our responsibility to redeem the world. And how? Through our own example of unity. And as long as we shun that and choose to hate our own people and love other people because we want to merge with them and be nice to them, being nice to them is fine. It's just we need that. But the idea is that we're doing it in order not to unite among ourselves. And that's where we are failing the world. If we want to help the world, we have to unite among ourselves, first and foremost. And we don't need to understand what to do. We need to understand that we need to unite. And what to do, knowing what to do will come once we understand that we need this.
I just want to keep being this devil's advocate because I grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey and I can't help myself.
That's a poor excuse.
And you're a Jew.
And I'm a Jew.
That's a better excuse.
Isn't that kind of isolationist? You know, are black people supposed to work within black people? Are Chinese people supposed to work amongst Chinese people? Are Latinos supposed to work among Latinos?
No, it's not.
Are Jews supposed to work just among Jews? I
didn't say just. You said it.
Okay, so can you clarify, please?
We are supposed to unite among ourselves, yes, in order to set an example for the world. We're not doing this for ourselves. It's the opposite of isolationism. We're doing this because we care about the world, because the world needs an example, and it's looking for that example from us. That's why it condemns us. That's why it has this permanent agenda item that says Israel, because it keeps looking for an example. And when we don't give it, when we give the opposite example, it hates us to death.
Do you think Jews will have to leave America to accomplish that?
I don't know. Jews have to unite wherever they are.
No, because when we had a few conversations with prominent anti-Semites and some of their followers, and a lot of time I hear this line of, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I mean, if they're not calling us egomaniacal, because we have this concept of correcting the world, they'll say, well, this is all good, but can you just move out and let us deal with our problems while you're dealing with yours? Just like clear out.
I don't know. I know that we have to work on our unity, and what happens afterwards, we'll see.
It's cool. It's a good segue, because what we were doing today is not simply having a little party. This was great, right? I mean, I should have Irished my coffee here. What we should have, what we're doing is, this is sort of a segue into a new format. So the Jew Function started as a podcast. Now it's going to morph into a videocast. And we're actually, Chaim was the first guest in a series of guests where we're actually going to be talking about that exactly. What does it mean to unite? What does it mean to bring this idea of unity, of togetherness, community? These words that somehow lost a lot of meaning over the years. So what does that mean? How do you do it? How do you live it? How do you bring it into the world? Can you do it? Is it possible? Is there a future to that? Is it hopeless? Is this utopian? Is it whatever? All those questions, and we're bringing guests, some of whom are actually doing it, some of whom resist doing it, but everyone's going to have a point of view, and we want also people who are seeing this to start joining the conversation, because it's a conversation that has to start happening. It can't just be Seth and me, or Seth and me and Chaim and a few other people here. This has to become a number one top priority for Jews of the world. Before we unite, even, let's just talk about it, okay?
Let's just understand that we need it, and that will create a desire for it. Once we have a desire for it, if there's a will, there's a way.
It's true. It's true. Someone did say that.
This is my first question. When I feel hungry, I want to go eat. And what you just said, Chaim, is we need to feel that we need this unity. And
we first need to understand that we need it, and then we'll start feeling that we need it.
Yeah, it's like, right? Like you have an idea of something, and then you start to work with it, and then to play with it, and then you start to feel it. I don't know how is it when you said, like when you write a song, right? First, like, okay, I have an idea for a song, and then you start to work with it, and then you start to feel more and more about it, right? About the words and the it's a process that is initiated by this mechanism, and it gradually goes into
sometimes, but sometimes it's just a download from the ether.
No, granted, it could be both ways, but I think we can't wait for that spark to
No, but I'm worried though, because it's all here, right? It's the whole history of our people, and every time it happened is here. And fine, teach it to everyone.
It's all in the Bible.
There's more times, by the way. I didn't include everything.
Right. How many sources you have here, Chaim? How many?
In the process, we over 100 books and close to 100 essays and newspaper articles, and
you and all the hundreds of
so many friends I have to be thankful for. I mean, they did such an amazing job. Friends went to Chris, for example. He went to Her Royal Majesty's library to look up letters from the 1930s and whatnot. And friends went to the Bundestag library to find letters and documents kept in all kinds of digital files of Nazi documents and stuff. Amazing work, so much hard work, and it's all voluntary. So many friends.
The good news is, Seth, you were asking, and now's the time. If you can't be bothered by reading because it's too heavy to lift a book, it's great news because now there's an audiobook. So I want to play a short excerpt from that. If you would love to hear about the history and read.
So it's this
everything.
book that we've done our podcast on, but an audiobook of reading the book.
Exactly, but with a British accent. So if you're
Which
into
makes it
that,
much easier to digest. Maybe that's what was missing this whole time.
It's true. British accent makes everything sound more civilized. So let's hear an excerpt from, it's also a friend of ours. He's in the UK. His name is Chris Dawson. Big shout out to Chris. Let's hear a short excerpt. Let the British accent just wash over you. Don't resist it.
On March the 5th, 1938, the SS officer in charge of forced Jewish emigration, Adolf Eichmann, was commissioned to assemble material to provide the chief of the security police, SIPO, Reinhard Heydrich, with a foreign policy solution as it had been negotiated between Poland and France, i.e. the Madagascar Plan. Diligent and meticulous, Eichmann went straight to work. At the conclusion of his research, he presented a preliminary work carried out by the security police SD on the subject of accommodating...
This is great, huh? I mean, this makes it all sound like you're reading like a James Bond novel. This is exactly what we needed, Seth. We should have been doing only that. Anyway, so the audiobook is also available. There will be a link here or here or somewhere in the window. You'll see it. We really have to conclude because I feel this is like, this topic is as long as the exile, as we say in Hebrew, but we have to get to Tachlis, and I think the Tachlis is our next chapter, as we said. What do you guys think? What are we kind of one-liner that we're leaving with, that we want to leave our viewers with? On this journey, the Jewish choice. I might add, this is a good title.
Yeah, that would be my one-liner. It's our choice: unity or anti-Semitism.
But it's a real choice, meaning we'll have to like exert. It's not like, oh, I feel like having a good time. No, we'll have to like choose something and kind of go for it, and whatever it takes. It's not going to be necessarily the easy choice, we should say. Or is it?
It's not a bad feeling to feel united with someone,
Seth, why are you so serious?
We're at an epic moment in history. These are historical times, and each person who's listening to this is a hero in that movie. And we really can take this into our hands. We're at the precipice of we don't have to repeat the same painful cycle again. We can rise to something, peace on earth is peace among all humanity, some kind of real brotherhood of man is where we're headed. And let's try and begin to feel how good that can be. That's what we're moving towards.
Nice. I'll take a line from the very end of the book. It's actually not a line by Chaim. It's a quote from Rav Kook, another great personality. And to me, it kind of sums it up. And before I read, I'll say, yes, if we were doing this podcast 1,500 years ago, yeah, maybe it was a tough sell because, it was before the Spanish thing and the whole Holocaust thing and, all the million other examples. But now we have the history, we have the facts, we have the patterns, we've connected the dots, whatever you want to call them. It's all right in front of us. So now it's just a matter of, are we going to, go with it? Yeah, I don't feel it yet, as Seth said. But so Rav Kook said, any turmoil in the world comes only for Israel. Now we are called upon to carry out a great task, willingly and mindfully. to build ourselves and the entire ruined world along with us.
Amen.
We don't say amen here in this program. This is not. But yes, if we could will it, that's what we want to have. So this is it, everyone. This is the final episode in the Jewish Choice series of the Jew Function podcast. And of course, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at the Jew Function, everywhere. Also, thejewfunction.com for a learning experience that deals with everything you've heard, but from the point of view of network science and big data. And we're going to start meeting here again regularly. You don't have to wait 3 months between every episode with guests and a conversation. And follow us. I don't know if it's going to be on Twitter, on YouTube, but we will make it very, very clear. We can't do it by ourselves. It has to be a common effort. So, Chaim, thank you so much. It's been
Thank you, guys.
Really, I mean, doing this podcast has been so great just because of the work you put into this book. It's all in the book. Read the book if you want to. If not, just listen to the podcast. It's all laid out beautifully. And we'll see you here on the Jew Function. Seth.
Everything is in our hands, friends.
It is. It is. Until next time.